Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, August 10th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. So today we have a great number of feasts that we're celebrating. First up, we'll recall what the Abbot Orsini says, that it was when the Order of Our Lady of Mercy was instituted in Barcelona, Spain in 1218. Earlier we had talked about the apparition of Our Lady to St. Peter Nolasco, and it was on this day that the order was officially established, right? Because it was this day that King James of Aragon approved the establishment of the Order of Our Lady of Mercy, or Nuestra Señora de la Merced, also known as the Mercedarians. We have, one says it's 1218, one says it's 1223. The point is that it's today, and that's important. Likewise, we celebrate Virgen de la Peña in Bogotá, in Colombia. It was on August 10th, 1685, that Bernardino Rodriguez de Leon saw a great and unusual radiance that was not the natural light of day in the mountains east of Bogotá. As he drew near, he realized the light was coming from an image of an angel, the Virgin and Child, and Saint Joseph, which was outlined in rock. News of this discovery soon spread throughout the capital, and after investigation, the Archbishop authorized construction of a chapel on the mountain and public veneration of the images. Right? So they made a little chapel out of a thatched chapel, which collapsed in 1714, and then they put a stone one there. Mysteriously, people began to see Our Lady's face change at times, like she would be sad or tearful or happy. On May 8th, 1716, the left wall of the chapel collapsed to its foundations, and that was after only 150 days. So they decided to actually move the images from the mountain. In early June, a stonemason, Luis de Herrera, began separating the image from the underlying rock. Legend relates that when he finished, a bird flew out. The images were cleansed, polished, and touched up to make their clothes and their figures and clothes more distinct. They still weighed 750 pounds. In November, men carried them on their shoulders to the plain, where they were greeted with rejoicing and dancing. And now a national sanctuary, a national monument, Our Lady of the Craig is still an active church and an archdiocesan shrine. So we're going to jump way over and go back to the Philippines. We're in the Cathedral of St. Andrew in Parañaque. In the Philippines, they celebrate Our Lady of the Good Event of Parañaque. In Spanish, it's Nuestra Señora del Buen Suceso de Parañaque. And in Filipino, Inaing Matbuting Panyanyari ing Parañaque. Yeah, right. Something like that. So anyways, this image is an old image. It's Nuestra Señora del Buen Suceso, like Our Lady of Good Health or Good Event, or, yeah. But anyways, so the image actually came with the Augustinian fathers from Spain in 1580. It was a gift of the king to Filipino converts, right? The Augustinians stayed in Palanyang, later to be called as Parañaque, and established St. Andrew's Parish, right? So people really venerated the image. They loved this image until a bigger replica was commissioned, right? Interestingly enough, today they don't know where the bigger image is. So the tiny image was just put in a storage room for some time. One of the caretakers, named Katig, a poor native, saw the image untouched and covered with dust, and he asked the sacristan if he could just take it home. And the sacristan said, yeah, why not? So Katig enshrined it in his home, lighting candles in its honor, right? So he took care of the image in his house and considered it his treasure and comfort. As Katig got old and the end of his life was coming, they called Father Juan de Guevara, from the Order of St. Augustine, to give him last rites. So when he gave the blessing to Katig, the father saw the statue near his bed and asked if he could have it for 24 pesos, right? In exchange for masses that he would offer for him. Katig originally said no, but then he changed his mind, he said, okay, it'll be revered, and then he died in peace. So Padre de Guevara took the statue and placed it in his own room. A few moments later, he saw the image emit a mysterious light and heard glorious angelic hymns, leading him to conclude the image was miraculous. He reported the miracle immediately to the Augustinian superior, and upon hearing Father's words, Padre de Mentrida, who was the superior, ordered the icon brought to St. Andrew's Church for veneration. And it was on, you guessed it, August 10th, 1625, with great procession, that the image was enshrined in the altar. The only problem with this is, what do you call the image? Right? Because it doesn't have a particular image. So they asked all the friars to write the names of all the most famous titles of Our Lady in Europe on strips of paper, and they placed them in an urn. A young child was asked to draw the name, and for 6 times in a row, he picked out the name Nuestra Señora del Buen Suceso. 6 times. That was the name that was picked out of this urn. And so that's what they named it. So that's why it's known as Our Lady of the Buen Suceso. So Archbishop of Manila Miguel Garcia Serrano and colonial officials based in Manila arrived and venerated the image. Archbishop Serrano is credited with instituting the novena and reconstructing the altar. After the reconstruction, another feast was celebrated on February 22nd, 1626, which was attended by townsfolk and even people from other neighboring provinces. Last but not least, we also celebrate today the first solemn coronation, that's on August 10th, 1823, of Madonna delle Rocche, like Our Lady of the Rocks, right? So this is a famous image that's, like I said, that it was a shrine. But it's interesting why, because the shrine actually dates back to earlier miracles, which took place in the 1500s, right? These are an old tradition, but there's also old documents that affirm this, right? So one of them is a poor woman from Molare named Clarice, who had gotten some plants, and she cooked them up, and she was going to take them to the mountain where her husband was chopping wood, right? So again, all she had was her little plants. She was she had no bread, right? She was like, well, I guess I can't give him a sandwich. I'll just give him some lovely vegetables. So after like half an hour or so, like she was going up to this, like up the hill to where these woods were, where her husband was chopping wood. And the place is called Le Rocche. And all of a sudden, as she was walking, she saw a most beautiful woman in a beautiful, rich blue mantle and surrounded by beautiful light. The good woman, who was surprised by that vision, fell on her knees, marveling and shaking. But her surprise increased even more when the vision called her name. She said, Clarice, can you give me a little bit of bread? And she said, oh, my beautiful woman, absolutely, I would love to, but I only have like these little plants, these herbs that I cooked, and I'm taking to my husband. And she said, well, look in your bread basket. So the woman opened it with an uncertain hand, and she discovered bread, right? It was full of fresh and wonderful smelling bread. That's an important thing. It smelled wonderful. And so she cried out, she said, oh, Vergine Santissima, like most holy virgin, which isn't a bad thing, right? And she said, and the mysterious woman replies, yeah, that's exactly me who you're invoking. So she went to, she was told then, go to Molari and tell everyone that I want a church built in my honor, right? I will put a place of grace there. And then the vision disappeared. And then another miracle took place too, of a man named Giovan Maria Casuli, who was unable to move himself, right? He said he almost could not use his limbs. And so what he would do is he would drag himself, like supported on two pieces of wood. Hearing that Our Lady had appeared in this spot, he thought the best thing to do would be take this street up to the Mountain de la Rocche, and then he would look up to heaven, cry and shout out and say, "Oh, most holy Virgin of de la Rocche, free me from this my unhappy state." He had a very lively faith, though, and he received that grace. Right? He left these pieces of wood at the feet of Mary, and all happy, he cried out, "Long live Mary! Long live Mary!" Amen. So anyways, this beautiful shrine was so important that they crowned the image on August 10th, 1823. And that is what we are celebrating today in the Marian world on August 10th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we read the concluding point of Meditation 63, The Agony in the Garden. And today's point is entitled, The Capture. The prayer of Jesus is over. And then, with determination, with generosity and courage, he calls his disciples, and at their head goes to encounter his enemies, not in order to offer resistance and defend himself, but just to deliver himself into their hands. Now see Jesus being roughly tied. His executioners tighten his fetters. But go also into the heart of Jesus, and see there another executioner, namely his love, which binds him much more tightly and violently. Jesus was a victim and a slave of his love. Sic Deus dilexit mundum. He loved me and gave himself up for me, St. Paul would later exclaim. When Our Lady saw him so cruelly bound, her anxiety increased. What was going to happen to him? What were they going to do to her Jesus? And he is bound in such a manner for your sake. Look at him well.
Ponder what this means, bound for you, which means that not only does he let himself be bound in order to suffer for you, or in your place, or for your sake, but it also means that often you yourself are the one who binds his hands. Are you aware of what this means? There is nothing which so binds the hands of Jesus as ingratitude, coldness, tepidity, want of correspondence to his grace, in other words, sin. Just guess, if you can, how many times Jesus wanted to bestow great graces on you, wanted to shower favors and benefits on you, and you, by your behavior, bound his hands. He wanted to sanctify you, but you would not let him. You would just obstruct him. Come on then. Bind yourself hand and feet to him for the sake of his love. Bind yourself to him with loving fetters, that you may never lose him any more, and that you may repeat with the Canticle of Canticles, I found him whom my soul loves. I beheld him and would not let him go. Beg of our Blessed Lady that this grace may be granted to you.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.